Hey, what's going on guys? Alex here with TFL Bike. I'm here in Southern California today doing a full review on this really cool Swedish design bike. This is the Cake Osa Plus. We're gonna get it out on the road, go through all the details. Let's jump right into the full review. So this is the Osa, and the Osa is Cake's utility bike, and I'll go through the modular design in a second and show you why it's so good to use as a utility bike. But Cake says this is the equivalent of a 125cc motorcycle. It is street legal, is plated. You still need a motorcycle endorsement to ride it. And just look at the design. That is one of the coolest designs I've ever seen on a two-wheeled vehicle. All right, so we are off on this Cake Osa Plus. And this is my first true mile on one of these. Never ridden one, never even seen one before today. Now we're off on the road. Cake, if you couldn't tell by the crazy design of this bike, is a Swedish company. This is a very Swedish design. And I think they're really cool looking motorcycles. The whole idea with these is that they're supposed to be super modular, so you can configure them exactly how you want them and make it the perfect utility bike for you. So if you need two seats, you can do that. If you need a back rack, you can put a back rack on it. A surfboard rack, you can make that happen too. If you want a front rack in front of you so you can make sure your groceries don't go flying, they have a solution for that as well. So this is powered by a 10 kilowatt motor, 2.5 kilowatt hour battery, and it makes about 13.5 horsepower. And yeah, it's not a performance machine, but even with 13.5 horsepower, I'm in a pretty hilly area here in San Diego, and I'm having no problems climbing these hills and keeping up with traffic. I'm not gonna be able to do highway speed on this, but on these smaller kind of single lane roads it does really well. Now there is this little TFT screen down here that gives you some information. You have a couple dummy lights on the side for your high beams, turn signals, and a check engine light, funny enough. But it gives you your speedometer, also a little trip computer up here in the top, a battery indicator in the top right hand corner, although it doesn't show you an estimated range. It just is kind of a battery graph like you'd find on your phone, and it kind of jumps around a little bit, so I have a little bit of range anxiety. Also, if you look down at that screen there's 3 different ride modes. I'm in ride mode 2 right now. Ride mode 1 is your battery saving mode. That'll limit the bike to 28 miles an hour. Ride mode 2 is kind of your middle ground if you need to keep up with traffic but also want to save some battery. That'll limit it to 44 miles an hour. And then you can go up to mode 3, and that's your full speed mode. That gives you a 56 mile an hour top speed. And to adjust those modes, you can do it on the fly with the throttle closed. You just have to push the button in. I'm gonna leave it in 2 for now. There's also 2 different brake modes. I'm in brake mode 2 right now. What that means is when I let off the throttle, it's gonna put power back into the battery and regen. If I switch it into brake mode 1, now I'm freewheeling when I let off the brakes, and I probably shouldn't have done that while I'm coming up to a stop sign. Speaking of brakes, disc brakes on this, 220 millimeter discs up front, and you have rear brakes too. No ABS or anything, but the rear brake is hand actuated with your left hand, so no brake pedal down by your foot. The regen braking isn't the strongest in the world. I definitely still need to get on the brakes every once in a while, but I do like that it's there, putting battery back into the battery, and it's actually kind of nice that it doesn't lunge you forward. I'd like to see a little more regen out of it, but if it had too much, you know, it's just going to kind of throw you forward, and that's not what you want on a motorcycle. In a car, that works great, but on a bike, you want everything to be pretty predictable. So I'd rather have not enough regen than too much, and then just rely on the brakes. The one downside with this TFT is I was wearing polarized sunglasses and I couldn't see it at all. And I did talk to one of the Cake guys about that, and they said they're aware of it. They're working on the fix for it. They have a new screen coming to these bikes soon that will work better with polarized sunglasses. But for now, I had to take my sunglasses off and just roll with the visor because I really couldn't see that screen at all. And I just wanted to give a big thanks to Revzilla for making this video possible. They hooked me up with a lot of the riding gear you see in this video. So if you need anything, whether that be a helmet, riding jacket, boots, parts, oil for your bike, definitely make sure you go over to revzilla.com. Now here's why this bike is so cool. It's this modular frame. First of all, this frame's all aluminum, and there's a lot of aluminum parts on here, including the hubs, tons of in-house parts made by Cake that are done in aluminum. But you have lots of adjustability here. So everything is mounted to the bike using this clamp system. So if I undo this clamp right here, you can see that the whole headlight will actually pull out. And then you can mount like a front basket in its place and then reattach the headlight to the basket. So that's really cool. On this bike right here, this also has a rear seat. You can see that just slides in right there, but you can pull this off, just have a clamp there, and again, put a basket on the back or a surfboard rack or something instead of the seat. Also, because these are all on clamps, your rider seat is adjustable forward and backwards. So if you wanted to, you could slide the seat a little bit back. If I own this bike, that's probably what I'd do. I felt like I was sitting a little too far forward, but because you have this super simple frame rail, you can just loosen up this clamp, slide the whole thing back, and adjust your riding position, and that is super, super cool. All right, we're in ride mode 3, full throttle here, accelerating up this decently steep hill. 43, 44, 45, 46, 47. So yeah, even still uphill, I mean, it's not crazy fast, but it still pulls. As long as you're doing under highway speeds. Now, as far as handling, it's really fun. This has little 14-inch wheels, so it changes directions real quick. You sit up pretty high. I want to say it's right above a 31-inch seat height, but it feels like a mini moto, sort of, because it's got these little tiny wheels. They're not quite as small as like a Grom or a Monkey, but it is very tossable, and especially because it's so light, under 200 pounds with the battery, you'll be able to throw this thing all over. Cool part is when you come to a stop as a big group like this and you're all on electric bikes, you can actually talk to each other about where you're going and what your next turn is. And I have earplugs in right now, so if I were on a gas-powered bike, there's no way I'd be able to hear anyone, but with this, it's pretty nice. So we're here just grabbing a quick water break real quick, and we have all these bikes parked on the side of the road, and literally every person that walks by who isn't with this group is asking about them. So like I said, it's a head turner, and you will get stopped on one of these. Just people asking you what they're all about. The cops like them. See what I mean? Everyone asks about this, even the sheriff. Everyone loves them. It's awesome. So far on this ride, with one stop, I've done 11 miles according to the trip computer, and it's showing, looks like just below half battery, but the battery seems to jump around a lot. I have seen it kind of go down to this halfway mark, and then it jumps right back up after a couple minutes. So yeah, it's hard to tell exactly how much range I have left on this bike. That's so far my biggest complaint with this. Also, as far as the top speed goes, I think 56 miles an hour is absolutely plenty. I wouldn't want to do much faster on this. Even when you get it up to like 50 miles an hour, you only have 6 miles an hour till you're at the top speed, and it already feels a little wobbly. If you touch the handlebar a little too aggressively, the whole bike wobbles a little bit, and that's true of anything with wheels this small, so top speed's really not an issue. Yeah, as you can see, I mean, we just went downhill a little bit. It was relatively flat though, and even still, battery gauge jumped up a little bit in that 1 mile we've done. As far as suspension goes, it's decent. It might be a little stiff, but it does a pretty good job of soaking up bumps in the road. The roads around here aren't all that rough though compared to what we have in Colorado, so I'm not testing the suspension out too much. I think part of the reason the suspension feels a little stiff is because the seat just doesn't have much padding at all in it. But I would be really mad actually if they made a more comfortable seat, because they'd have to put a lot more foam into it. It'd become this big, ugly, blobby seat. And this bike just has such an incredible design. I'm okay with the sore butt if the bike looks this good. Look at that. This is where this bike belongs right here. Coming to the beach, I feel like every single one of these needs a surfboard to go on the side of it, but you know, you don't put a lot of brain power into it. They're super easy to ride. It can take you around town and take you to the beach. This is a really good shot right here. I could get used to that.
I really like the design of this bike because you can see all the components. It's really simple. You have your motor right here, battery, the brains in the computer, wheels, suspension, and a frame, and that's basically it. It's super stripped down. And I think it's really cool that you can just see all the inner workings. So here is the battery right here. This is a 2.5 kilowatt hour battery that gives this bike a 52-mile range. The charger's right here. It charges off of a standard 110 outlet, and it can do 0 to 80% in about 2 hours, or 0 to 100% in 3 hours. And the battery is hot swappable, so you can pull this little plug here, pull the Velcro strap out, and the whole battery can pull itself out. I'm doing my own camera work here today and I only have one hand, so I'm not going to attempt that, but I did see it happen and it is a very easy process. On the other side of the battery, you have a power button, a status indicator, and then this is really cool. You have some power outputs as well. So 12 volt and USB ports. You can also get a converter for this to run a 110 outlet to charge your laptop or something. So if you bring this bike to the beach or really anywhere and you want to use it as a battery bank to charge up your devices, you can. You just have to be mindful of how much battery you're using so you can still make it home. And this battery can be charged in or out of the bike. So let's say you live in an apartment like I do and you keep the bike in a garage, but you want to charge it in your place and keep the battery temperature controlled, you can pull the battery and charge it inside. Up front, you do have inverted forks, also a 14-inch wheel with a single 220 millimeter disc. The front forks have 4.7 inches of travel, and this rear shock has 10.2 inches of travel, and it's adjustable for preload. The suspension's all right. I did run over some manhole covers and bottom out the forks, but it's adequate for running around in the city. The bike itself weighs 159 pounds and the battery 37 pounds. So all in, you're under 200 pounds. 31.5-inch seat height, so really manageable bike to ride, even if you're not comfortable riding a lot of different motorcycles. There's actually no key for this bike, which is a little bit interesting. You have a power button on the battery right here. Then once the battery is on, you can turn the kill switch on, and then you hit this button right here and the screen will come to life. Now there's no key, but there is a pin code, so you have to type in the pin. The pin on this bike is just 123. It beeped and now we're good to go. So if I twist the throttle, you can see that belt drive starting to spin right there and it's good to go. So no key to actually start the bike. You do have a keyed ignition lock and a keyed battery holder as well. So you can lock the battery in place, you can lock the forks, but the bike itself just has a pin code to turn itself on. There's also an app, and it will tell you if the bike has moved from its location without the phone it's registered to. So a little bit of security there as well. Also, I don't know if you can hear this little chime. That's kind of the idle noise it makes, so you know the motor is ready to go, and if you twist the throttle, it's gonna move. So it does make a little bit of noise while you're sitting still here. You do have an LED headlight up front, turn signals down below, and a tail light and turn signals out back, so you are fully street legal. Mirrors up top. I was a little frustrated with the mirrors. They don't have a ton of adjustability. They only rotate. You can't like push them back and forth. So that's one thing I'd change with this bike. And then a little bit of an interesting setup down here. You have floorboards instead of foot pegs with grip tape on it, and then a center stand instead of a side stand as well.
We do have to talk about price a little bit because this bike ain't cheap. $10,500 for this as you see it right here. Pricing on all electric bikes like this are starting to get more reasonable as the years go on, but electric motorcycles are still new, so pretty much any of them you buy, whether it's this or that Saunders Metacycle, even the Harley Livewire, you're kind of investing in the future, showing your support for the future. Maybe you're not getting every bit of value for your dollar out of the motorcycle you'll bring home. Yeah, it's expensive, but it feels like a quality unit. The design is very thoughtful, and I just think it's super, super practical. If you can afford one of these and you want to look good strolling around a beach town or in the city or even on your property, go for it. Also, the good news is Cake does make some much more affordable models, and I'll have a review on one of those as well. on a maca, a cake maca. So make sure you stay tuned to alltfl.com. That's where we post all the content from all 8 YouTube channels, 2 podcasts, all 4 websites, and our TikTok page. Everything goes to alltfl.com, so make sure you stay tuned there so you don't miss the video on the maca. But yeah, all in all, a really fun bike to ride, decent acceleration, and I just feel really cool riding this around town. It looks great, and it's got some really thoughtful design elements in it with how modular it is. So really cool bike if you can afford one.
So there you have it, the Cake Osa Plus. I had a lot of fun on this bike, and really this is probably, out of any motorcycle I've ever ridden, the most attention-grabbing bike. People were just looking at it everywhere, getting thumbs up, we were getting honked at. People seem to really connect with this Cake Osa Plus. It's just a really radical design. People want to know what it is, they want to know all about it. So if you're into a bike with a really radical design, I can say this one's fun and it's super practical, and you can really just customize it and set it up how you want. So there you have it, the Cake Osa Plus. I'll be doing a couple more videos while I'm here in Southern California on a couple other cake models. So make sure you stay tuned to alltfl.com so you don't miss any of that. Catch you in the next one.